Hey, did you know that plastic is produced with oil? A fossil fuel that pollutes the environment. Wouldn't it just be awesome if we could live our lives without plastic? Well, there's a company that wants to help you do just that. Life Without Plastic. They sell products that will reduce or eliminate your dependence on plastic. They have a large selection of products like toothbrushes, food storage containers, drinking straws. And the best part is that they're also very reasonably priced. So what are you waiting for? Check out all these great plastic-free products and help save the planet. Just click on the link in the show notes to find out more and to start your journey to being plastic-free.
Hello friends, I'm Paul and this is the Nature Wanderer podcast. I'd like to welcome you into the woods with me today. I'm actually at the Erie County Forestry in Sardinia, New York. It's off of Genesee Road, and I noticed a little path going off of my usual trail today, so I decided I was going to wander down that path and see where it leads to. And I think I've already possibly come to a dead end. It's a nice, brisk autumn day, so I'll apologize for the background noise. There's a lot of crunchy leaves in the woods today. And yes, I have reached a dead end, so I'm not sure what this new trail is. Breaking one of my rules. If you're going to take a new trail, make sure there's blazes on that trail, and there aren't here. So I think they're actually maybe just starting to create a new trail here. Another broken rule for me is I'm hiking alone. You should always have a buddy with you. And we're going to talk about hiking safety. I know we did hiking safety already this year, but we're getting into the cold months of the winter, and the temperatures are starting to drop. If you live in the northeastern U.S., or anywhere in the northern U.S., I should say, or anywhere around the world where it gets cold in the winter time, we're looking at snow in probably another month and a half. Hopefully not sooner than that, although we have had snow before that before. But we're into early November, so probably in the middle of December we'll be getting snow here. So it's like a whole new ball of wax as far as safety goes, as far as winter hiking goes, because you have to prepare differently than during the summertime. And prepare is like the key word. And that's where I'm going to start out talking, is about preparedness. Always prepare for a winter hike. I mean, things are a little bit different out here in the winter time. Like I said, it's colder, you have snow, but another thing that a lot of people don't think about is the length of day. I was actually talking to a friend this morning, and she was telling me how she was just enjoying the weather and decided she was going out on one of the rails to trails, and so she was hiking along one of the rails to trails in the area. And she was out there, and all of a sudden she realized it's starting to get dark. And she was probably a good couple of miles from her house, and she didn't want to be out on this trail in the dark, but she didn't realize I shouldn't say she didn't realize, she had forgotten how early it gets dark. So, I mean, always plan. Plan. It's very important, so always plan ahead. First of all, before you head out on your hike, check the forecast. See what the weather is going to do. Are you going to need winter gear? Are you, looking at an ice storm coming in? Are you looking at a snowstorm coming in? Talked to my brother from Iceland just the other day, and he says, "Oh yeah, we already had our first snowstorm for the winter." It's like, man, glad I'm not there. But so always plan ahead. Check the forecast. That way you know what to bring, what to be prepared for, or you change your plans. If you have a snowstorm coming in, or maybe some freezing rain, high winds, any of that, you may want to think about holding off your hike till another day. For instance, today when I decided to come out here to the forestry, I was checking the weather, and I was trying to figure out, okay, when's the best time? I don't have to worry about snow, but rain? I don't want to be hiking in the rain. So I found 2 days that really worked for me, and with no rain, comfortable temperatures, a little chilly, but hey, talking about winter hiking, should be chilly. So prepare, check the forecast. So besides checking the weather forecast, you also want to know where you're going, know your route, know your terrain. I've been here at the Erie County Forestry many, many, many times. I know this place like the back of my hand, but I used to say that many years ago too. And I have gotten lost here before, middle of winter. And so always know your terrain. If you have maps that you can download, I just did a whole podcast on apps and talked a little bit about some of the mapping apps that are out there, and you may want to try to download one of those and see what trails you're headed towards, see what the terrain's like, so you can prepare for that as well. Is it a little above your capabilities? Maybe you're not up to a lot of hill climbing. The trail I'm on now has pretty much all uphill, the first part of it. That levels out, and then, of course, if you're going uphill, you got to go downhill. But if you are not in shape for an uphill, maybe it's early spring or something, you got to watch out for that. Also, in the winter time, with the cold, it's harder to breathe. You can't catch your breath as easily as you can in the summertime. You get into the higher terrains, it gets colder. So always know your terrain, know where you're going, map it out, be prepared. So all of these things should be in your planning stage. Download the route maps, topographic maps. I talked in my apps podcast about All Trails. Probably my favorite mapping app. And it'll show you the maps of the area that you're going on, the trails. You can find new trails too. Once again, if you're doing a new trail, give yourself extra time. Make sure you know that trail. Okay, so check that out. And also, I am breaking my rule today. I didn't have any options today. No one wanted to go hiking with me. They were too busy. Shouldn't say they didn't want to. I'm sure every single one of them would love to be out here in this weather. A nice cool autumn day. I'm sure they would love to be out here with me, hiking through the woods, listening to nature, smelling nature, seeing all this beauty around me, all the colorful leaves that are falling. So, they'd rather do that, but unfortunately, everyone, that would have come with me is either working or they had other commitments or couldn't get a hold of them. So I'm out here alone, and that's not a good thing. Always make sure you have the buddy system. Always make sure that you have an itinerary and someone knows that itinerary. That's a big one for me. I always believe in that, and I should always make sure everyone else knows to do that. Make sure someone knows where you're going, when you're going to be back. Okay, this morning I told my wife, well, today's probably the day I'm going hiking. I'm going over to the Erie County Forestry. I'll park on the same side that I'm going to hike. So I haven't decided which side of the road I'm going to be, hiking on. So if you need to get a hold of me, you'll know where the car is. I know that the cell phone coverage is spotty in this area, so it's hard to get a hold of me sometimes. I probably don't have any bars in this section where I am. They usually don't. So you may not be able to get a hold of me, but at least they'll know where I am. And if I'm not back on time, actually I should say if I'm not back within an hour after when I'm supposed to be back, I told my wife I'd be back, then she starts to worry and she will let the authorities know that I may be lost in the woods. So that's why it's always good to have an itinerary, and it's critical if you are hiking alone, like I am today. That way, and I mean, if you didn't leave an itinerary, behind, I usually like to write on a piece of paper or let someone know, spouse, but maybe you don't have, maybe there isn't someone to let them know. Write on a piece of paper. Leave it on your kitchen table, somewhere where someone's going to spot it right away. That way, if someone's missing you, the authorities go to your house, they go in, they find it. So make sure you have that itinerary as well. Make sure someone knows where you are, where you're going, when you're going to be back. So these are all in the prep stage, getting ready for your hike. Make sure you do all these things. It's very important. And like I said earlier, also, make sure you know your sunrise and sunset when you're planning your hike. Make sure you know the time of day that the sun is going to go down so that you give yourself plenty of time to get out of the woods. I remember hiking once with my wife in the evening, and we were doing some geocaching, and we were having trouble finding the cache, and I kept watching my watch because I knew the sun was going down soon. And I just wanted to get that geocache, though. I eventually decided, okay, we're not finding it. It's getting dark. We need to get out of here. Now, about halfway out, it was so dark. It was a cloudy night, no moon, very dark. I had flashlights, but the batteries were getting weak. Another thing I forgot to do is check the batteries, bring along some spares. And for like the last quarter of our hike, it was like scary. Very scary. And I say that because we had no light at all. Our flashlights had died. We were trying to find the blazes on the trees. It was just, not a good situation. So always make sure you know the time that the sun goes down. Give yourself plenty of time for your hike. If you find that it's taking longer than you thought, turn around, go back, go out. You can always come back in another time. You can continue your hike on another day. So always, always, always be prepared. Okay, so you're prepared. You know where you're going to hike. You left an itinerary. You know the weather. You know the terrain. You know you're up for it. You know sunrise, sunset. What's your next step? Well, you got to pack for your hike. I mean, I usually will pack the night before most of the stuff. Get my backpack ready, especially if I'm leaving early in the morning. You always want to make sure that you pack light in the wintertime, but not too light. And the reason I say light is because, once again, it's tougher hiking in the wintertime. I mean, I love hiking in the winter because there's fewer people out on the trail. There's a lot fewer people. Most of them are in their homes hibernating. They're out there in the summertime enjoying the trails, but in the wintertime, they just head for the indoors. So there's fewer people out on the trails. But it is tougher to hike through the snow, in the cold. You tire out easier. You can chance hypothermia, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, but all these things you have to be cautious of. So, make sure that you pack lightly so that you're not carrying all that extra weight, but also make sure you have everything you need for a safe hike. And one of the most important things that you should have with you is a first aid kit. And I'm not talking some huge mega first aid kit. Just the basics. I mean, a basic first aid kit should have your bandages, first aid cream, you know, the essentials, maybe some larger bandages, something to make a splint with. I mean, there's sticks all around you if you need to. I'm not going to get too much into first aid here, but you know, you can make sure you have some larger bandages so that you can make a splint if you need to. Make sure that you have anything that you think you might need if you get a cut, if you get injured in any way, a scratch. But you want to have the essentials in that kit. So you don't want it too big. So once again, trying to keep it lightweight. But make sure you have a first aid kit, a small one. You want to have extra food and water. If you shouldn't be out there too long where your water's going to freeze, hopefully. You want to make sure you have some water with you. And I'm going to stop right here a second because I always love the view here. I'm on top of a ravine. Got about a 40-50 foot drop down to the creek. And it's just so still and quiet. Yeah, it's just absolutely gorgeous in here this time of year. And I haven't seen a soul. I mean, there was one other car in the parking lot on the other side of the road, and that was it. So I think I'm pretty much all alone over on this side. I did see a couple of horse trailers, but I'm on a trail that the horses aren't allowed to be on. So yeah, make sure you have some extra water with you. Take a canteen. Of course, that's good in the summer too, but even in the winter, everyone's afraid, oh, my water's going to freeze. You're not going to be out that long, I hope. Okay, so it shouldn't freeze. And if you pack it right, it'll stay insulated and it'll keep it from freezing. But you also want to have some food. Now, I like to pack some high energy bars, some like granola bars with high energy food for you. Gives you that little boost of energy if you need it. I also like to pack a little bit of fruit. And make sure that you don't just throw wrappers all over the place. So when you do eat it, put your wrappers back in your pack. They don't add any weight. Nice thing about fruit is once you're done eating it, it's gone. No wrappers. So make sure you have extra food and water with you. A plastic whistle is a great thing to pack. Plastic whistle that I usually like to hang on the outside of my pack. Great for emergencies. Great signaling. If something does happen, you're stranded in the woods and you need to, you know, get some help. If you scream, you're using up energy and your voice does not carry that far. But if you have a whistle with you, it doesn't take a lot of energy to blow into a whistle and it's a lot louder than your voice. So it will carry further through the woods. It'll carry further through the field, wherever you are, and hopefully someone can hear that whistle. You can do the short and long burst, the SOS, okay? Dot, 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 dash, 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 dot, 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 you know, Morse code. And that'll let people know, oh, this hiker is in trouble. I'm hearing the SOS with a whistle. And hopefully they call the emergency crews and they'll come and find you. And you probably think, well, I'll find my way out. Well, you can get lost pretty easily in the winter time. I've done it before, tracking, doing some tracking, and I got so intensified on following the tracks that I lost the trail. And next thing I know, I'm lost in the woods. So you never know. It can happen. And if I hadn't found my way out, if I hadn't thought clear enough to, hey, follow your footsteps out, you know, I could have been in some big trouble. So always, always, always have some sort of signaling in case you need to. If you broke your ankle and you can't get out on the trail, you broke your foot, you know, you just can't walk anymore, you need a way to signal to get help. So a plastic whistle is one of the best things that I recommend. Always take a flashlight just in case you didn't plan correctly with that darkness, daylight thing. Make sure you have a flashlight and make sure the batteries are fully charged in it, and take extra batteries too. You never know. Could have an emergency where you're out there for quite a while. Don't plan on your phone batteries, your phone flashlight. You kill the batteries on your phone, you could be in serious trouble. And the flashlight will kill those batteries very quickly. So make sure you take a regular flashlight, extra batteries with you. Fire starter kit, not a bad idea. They sell them on Amazon or in the store, camping stores. A nice quick fire starting kit, or just take some matches, waterproof strike anywhere matches, stick them in a waterproof container. I have seen those sold in a lot of stores, the waterproof matchstick containers. And you keep that with you. It doesn't weigh much, so you're not adding extra weight, but it could save your life. Quick fire, keep you warm, keep that hypothermia from setting in. And what I consider an essential in winter hiking is to take it's got so many names, space blanket, rescue blanket, emergency blanket, whatever you want to call it. What it is it's a very thin blanket. Usually I like the ones that are bright red on one side and metallic on the other side. Just going to stop here a second. I'm actually crossing a stream. So peaceful here. Yep, so peaceful. The stream is just meandering through, nice and light. You can hear the crows calling, some of the songbirds here. So nice. But anyhow, these space blankets are lightweight. They're usually reflective so that you can use it as a signal as well. They're also waterproof, so they'll keep you dry. But the way they're built, even though they're really thin and lightweight, they will keep you warm. They insulate you. It's amazing how they'll insulate you. There are other ways. If you do have an emergency, you got to stay in the woods overnight in the winter time. There are other ways to build shelters and stay warm, but this podcast isn't long enough to get into wilderness survival. Maybe another day I'll get into wilderness survival with you guys. So anyhow, so fire starter kit, space blanket, those two things, I consider them critical for winter hiking. Summer hiking, not so much, but winter hiking, definitely. Make sure you take those with you. All of this stuff should fit into your backpack. Another thing I like to take with me, and you may or may not have been hearing my footsteps, you may have heard 3. That's because I have my hiking stick. I like having a hiking stick not just to help me along the trail and to point things out when I have someone with me and I'm like, oh, look at this over here, and I can just point to it with my hiking stick. But it also helps you pull you through the snow or push you through the snow. Like I said, you're walking through the snow in the winter time, colder weather, you wear down a lot quicker. I don't care how good a shape you're in. You wear down quicker than you would in the summer if you're hiking in the cold winter. And speaking of wearing down, I'm going up a pretty steep hill here, so I'm going to slow down a little bit, catch my breath. But so trekking poles are good. If you know there's going to be ice or snow on the trail, you may want crampons. Crampons are these metal, like spiky things that hook onto your boots so that they give you extra traction when you're in the snow or on ice. And maybe if the snow is deep, think about taking some snowshoes, wearing snowshoes. Snowshoes make your feet bigger. That way you don't sink into the snow as easily, and it makes it so much easier to walk through the snow. So snowshoes, crampons, awesome. They'll really help you out, especially if you have snow on the ground or ice. So now you have your backpack ready. You're ready to get out in the woods? No, not yet. We're almost there. Remember, winter hiking, it's a lot about preparedness. Getting ready, and being prepared for the weather, for whatever you may come across in the winter time. So the next step is how to dress. how to dress. My favorite, warmest coat that I wear around the house, well, I shouldn't say around the house, when I wear in the winter time outside around my house, when I'm going outside, it's an old, really old jacket. I've replaced the zipper, I think, twice on it. I've patched holes in it. I mean, I wouldn't wear it in public. Would not wear it in public. It's the ugliest jacket. It's got stains on it. But just the way the jacket is built, it is so warm. So warm. So I love that jacket, but you can do a lot better than just that jacket. How? Layers. That's the key to winter hiking. And it's not just staying warm, it's also staying cool. I know it sounds strange. It may be like 32 degrees out, 30 degrees, 25. You know, now I'm talking about staying cool. Well, if you have too many layers on, you end up getting hot. What happens when you get hot? You sweat. What do you think that moisture is going to do? Yeah, you got it. It's going to cool you off. It's going to get you to the point where you're too cool and you end up getting cold. You get cold, you get hypothermia. So it's all about layers. Layers that you can easily remove. So you usually want to avoid, when you are dressing, you want to avoid any cotton or cotton blends. Cotton tends to hold in moisture and sweat. Like I said, you don't want to have that sweat on your body when you're hiking, especially in the winter time. In the summertime, yes, you do want it. The sweat is actually helping to cool your body in the summer, but we're talking cold weather hiking. So you don't want the sweat on there cooling you off and causing your body temperature to lower. So you want to avoid the cottons or cotton blends. They absorb the moisture, they hold it in, and it's going to be trouble. So if you're avoiding cotton and cotton blends, what are you going to wear? Well, wool is good, or synthetic blends. Okay, these will whisk away the moisture. You know, any of the synthetic blends or the wool blends, they just whisk that moisture away. You don't have to worry about getting too wet and cooling off. So that is the best type of fabrics that you want to wear. You also want to avoid tight clothing. Okay, tight clothing. Someone told me many years ago when I was helping insulate a house, and I'm trying to get that insulation in between the joists in the house. I want to get that insulation in between the joists. I want to make it nice and tight between the outer wall and the inner wall. And the guy was helping insulate. He's like, oh, no, you want some air in there. You want to keep some air in between the wall and the insulation. I'm like, why would you do that? He's like, air acts as insulation. And it is true. Air does act as insulation. Like polar bears. What's this got to do with air? Well, polar bears, their fur is actually hollow because air acts as insulation. So that little bit of insulation, a little bit of air, helps keep the polar bears warmer. And that's what we want to do. We want to make sure the clothing is loose. Now, your first layer underneath, it can be a little bit tight. I mean, you're putting all these other layers on top of it, so you have to have it a little bit tight, but not too tight. You also want to be comfortable while you're hiking. You want to have loose-fitting clothing, and you want to have several layers. So you may put on maybe a t-shirt, some long underwear, some sort of insulating layer underneath, and then on top of that, maybe a heavier t-shirt with long sleeves. And then on top of that, maybe a sweatshirt, a thin sweatshirt, then a heavier sweatshirt, then a jacket, a waterproof jacket, and then your heavy jacket on the outside of that. Now, it's all up to you. It depends on how cold it's going to be. It depends on how you handle the temperatures, but you want to be able to easily take off some layers if you start getting too hot from your hiking. Especially because it's harder to hike in the snow, in the cold. I keep mentioning that because I want to make sure you understand that. If you are out there and you're starting to sweat, remove a layer. Cool your body down a little bit. Not too much, but cool it down a little bit. As you start cooling off, put the layer back on. So this way you can adjust your layers so that you can adjust your temperatures, your body temperatures. Make sure you have some sort of water windproof outer layer. If the winds start picking up, you're going to cool off pretty quick. So make sure you have a windproof layer on the outside. And just in case you fall down in the snow, or you start getting some freezing rain, or maybe it starts snowing, you want to make sure that outer layer is also waterproof. Because if it's not, all your inner layers are going to get wet, you're going to get wet, you're going to cool off quickly. So make sure that outer layer, waterproof. And of course your feet, head, hands, make sure they're covered too. Make sure you have some good wool socks. I got my favorite winter socks. I got a favorite brand. Keep my feet so toasty warm. If you may want to put 2 layers of socks on. I usually, because I found a really good brand, good pair, I usually only go with 1 layer, but my feet stay warm. And then I have waterproof hiking boots. If it's really cold, I will wear my winter boots, which have good traction on them. And those keep my feet much warmer, but they also have good traction. So all depends on you, what you like to hike in, but make sure your feet stay warm. And of course, you've probably heard it a million times, you lose a lot of heat through your head. So make sure you have some sort of hat. I remember when I went out west and went to Glacier National Park, and silly me, I forgot a hat. Had my gloves, had my winter coat, had my extra layers, had all this stuff, but I forgot a hat. Which was all right because I went into the gift shop at the hotel I was staying at the resort. The lodge, I should say, was a park lodge, National Park Lodge. And I went to the gift shop there, and the first thing I looked for besides gifts was a hat. And they had this awesome hat. It's become my favorite hat. I've had it for many years, and I wear it all the time. So yeah, it keeps my head nice and warm. So always have some sort of wool hat or synthetic blend hat. Mine is wool. It really keeps my head warm. So I'm not a hat person. I do not like hats, but in the winter time, especially hiking in the cold winter, yeah, I make sure I have a hat. Also gloves, and take an extra pair of gloves. My gloves get wet because I'm always picking stuff up, I'm moving stuff around, I'm looking. I mean, I explore nature. That's me. So my gloves get wet pretty quick. So I always make sure I have an extra pair. Maybe you want 2 layers of gloves so you can remove the outer layer. Try to get some waterproof gloves. Okay, that really helps. I don't have any, but like I said, I take an extra pair. But keep the hands warm, keep the feet warm, keep the head warm. Okay, don't forget those things. So even if you're doing the layers and all, you forget those 3 extremities, you could be in trouble with frostbite. So make sure you dress properly. And the last thing I want to talk about with clothing, before we actually head out on the trail here, okay, make sure you pack extra clothing. Getting closer to the road here, so you might hear some road traffic in the background. But make sure you bring extra clothing in your backpack. Once again, we're packing light. Don't bring too much, but bring dry clothing just in case what you're wearing gets wet. A lot of what I'm talking about here is to keep you warm, keep you dry. Okay, whether it's bringing matches, whether it's wearing the proper clothing, watching the weather forecast, watching the temperatures, watching where you're going. All of this is to keep you warm and to keep you dry. Why? Well, there's this nasty little thing called hypothermia. I've never had hypothermia, but I have experienced it with a scout when I used to be a scout leader. I recall being at a camp, and I mean, they're very safe at the camp. Everything's about safety with the scouts. And the boys were going in the water, which was a lake. They were going swimming in the lake. they had lifeguards there, and they had little markers where it would basically guide you to stay in a certain area. So, I mean, it was fairly safe, and they would only allow good swimmers. You had to do a swimming test, and the good swimmers go out. But anyhow, I'm getting sidetracked here. I was sitting outside the designated area for swimmers. I was sitting outside that area with some of the other leaders. We were discussing the plans for the day, for the evening, and we had all these scouts going in the water. I think there was like 8 of them in our group that was going in swimming. And they had the buddy system. I mean, like I said, it's all about safety. They were in for a little while, and we were just talking, and, I just noticed, because I was sitting there facing the water, and all of a sudden I noticed that a couple of the boys had come out. They were doing the buddy system, proud of them, and they came out, and they were just sitting there on the edge of the water. And it was a nice, sunny, warm day. The one boy put his towel around him, and he just sat there, and I was watching him, and he was shaking. I kept an eye on him, and he just kept shaking. And after a little while, I realized it's like, okay, he's not warming up. Yeah, he's in trouble. And so I let one of the other leaders know, and he looked, and he's like, oh yeah, we got to do something now. And we got yelled at by the camp people who were there, the lifeguards, because both me and the other leader, we just jumped the fence. We went right over. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm not checking in, I'm just jumping the fence. This kid's in danger right now. He's getting into hypothermia. That's one of the first signs of you uncontrollable shaking. You don't realize how cold you are, and your body is trying to warm it up as quickly as possible. And so we grabbed him, we brought him outside the fence, and we started throwing towels around him, warm him up, and we quickly, the lifeguard finally realized what was going on and what we were doing. He got on the phone. He didn't do anything with us because he had to watch the other boys in the water. But he knew we had it under control, so he didn't call everyone out. But anyhow, he called, up to the nursing station, and they started heading down, from the nursing station. We were headed up already. We were headed right towards her. They took her in, got her in the cart, got the boy in the cart, took him up to the nursing station, and they started giving him some hot water, hot fluids, started warming him up, putting a blanket around him. But yeah, he was fine. He made it through, but it was a scary situation. Hypothermia is nothing you want to mess with. Your body is basically shutting down. Okay, it's trying to stay warm, and that's what the shivering is. It's trying to basically survive, but it's shutting down. And because of that, you could die from it. After a while, you just start getting tired, you fall asleep, and you never wake up again. So it's something you really want to avoid. And luckily, like I said, the situation could have gotten worse, but because the other leader and myself were aware of what was going on, we noticed it, we got to him quick enough, and we got him warmed up quick enough. So everything was fine with him. But that's why I bring this up, is, all the safety stuff about staying warm, staying dry, is all to avoid the hypothermia. So the body basically is losing heat faster than it can create it, is what's happening. So some of the signs of hypothermia: feeling cold, of course, and I'm not talking just a little bit cold, but you have that inner, like, I just can't warm up no matter what. You start shaking, you start, shivering. That's your body trying to warm up. And then you start getting what they call the mumbles and the stumbles. What's the mumbles and the stumbles? Well, you start talking in kind of a mumbled speech, and you start acting like you're drunk. You can't walk straight. You just start stumbling. You can't control your body. So that's the mumbles and the stumbles. If you start noticing that with yourself, or you probably will notice it with the person you're with more than you would yourself, the person you're with hopefully will notice it on you. That's when you know you're getting into some dangerous stage of hypothermia. You need to get help. Okay, so that's why I talk about all this. Okay, enough of that. Let's talk about on the trail. We talked all about prepping for the trail. Now let's talk about being on the trail. So now you're out there in the woods. You have your lightweight but full of good stuff backpack. You're dressed properly. You check the weather. It's not a bad day. You're not going to get any snowstorms or nothing. Now you're out on the trail. So while you're on the trail, stop. Yeah, stop. Stop every once in a while. I'm not talking just stand there and stare at the trail. No, you are out on the trail for a reason. You want to get out there and hike. You want to explore. But make sure you give yourself enough time for breaks. Take a break once in a while. You know, you find yourself like, even in the summertime when I'm hiking up a hill, you know, when I get about halfway up, I usually stop, take a break. I know I could go the whole way up the hill, but I want to make sure that I don't use up my energy too quickly. So I'll stop, I'll take a break. I'll maybe have a drink of water. Use your water conservatively, but you do want to stay hydrated. Even though it's winter time, you can dehydrate, so make sure you keep drinking water. Make sure everything is nice and tight. Check your body, give yourself a mental, okay, any place that feels colder than it should, what do I need to do about that? Am I getting too hot? Maybe I'll remove a layer. So stop and take a break. Have a bite of your energy bar. Okay, so don't just do like I always see. Nothing against the 80K. I love the 80K. I think it's a great hiking club. But whenever I see an 80K hike going on, it's like nonstop. They put their hiking boots on and they're out there just going. That's not my type of hiking. I'm an explorer. I'm a wanderer. I do like to hike, but I also like to make sure I get in some exploring of nature. I'm going to try to find another trail here. It's getting a little bit too noisy with the leaves here. So those are the two main things I want you to do while you're out on trail. Take a break, for whether it's a drink of water, a bite to eat, or just to rest a little while. And that's a great time to look around and explore the nature around you, see the nature around you, enjoy the nature around you. These people who just are constantly hiking, never stopping, it's like they miss a lot around them. I'm a hiker who is always looking around while I'm walking. So I do stop now and then, but I do a lot of, let's keep going, but then, I'm always looking around while I'm going too. So make sure you stop once in a while. And the second thing that's very important on the hike, adjust your clothing. If you're getting, I mentioned this already, if you're getting too hot, take off a layer, take off 2 layers. If you're getting too cool, add that layer back on, add another layer. I told you, bring extra clothing. You find something's getting wet, this is a good time to take a break, take it off, and change your socks, whatever you need to do to stay warm. And the most important thing about on the hike, don't be afraid to stop and turn around. If you think, okay, this has been a little bit, harder trail than I expected, and it might be getting dark in an hour, I'm watching the clock, I know I've only got an hour, is it going to take an hour to get out? Well, it might take a little longer than that. I better turn around. I didn't get to where I wanted to go. I know there's that beautiful waterfall up ahead that I want to see, but hey, tomorrow's another day. I want to live to that day so that I can come back and see it again. It's not worth it, guys, to, risk your life in the winter hiking. If you get lost in the woods, I know you're thinking, I'm never going to get lost in the woods. Hey, I usually think that too. I have been lost in the woods more than once. It happens. And I'm a very experienced hiker. I follow all these rules, except for the one about hiking alone, but unfortunately I do that way too often. But I always keep an itinerary, give it to my wife, let her know where I'm going to be. But, make sure that you follow these rules and not be afraid to turn around. You can always come out of the woods alive and come back and try to find that waterfall or whatever your destination was. You can do that another day. Don't be afraid to say, okay, that's enough. Okay, the weather starts turning. Yeah, make sure you get out. Also a good idea, you might want to find out more about survival, wilderness survival. That way, if you do run into that emergency, you will survive. You will get out. Okay, you will know how to stay alive in the winter. I know how to build winter shelters. I know how to build summer shelters. I know how to build a fire without matches. Not easy though. That's why I always take all that stuff with me when I go hiking. So these are all things that you really should know. So I hope you're prepared now to go out and explore the natural world, to explore nature, and doing it in the winter. I always tell people, don't hibernate this winter. Get out and explore nature. There's so much to explore out there, and hardly anyone else is out there, so it's a good time to do it because you get nature to yourself and your friend who came with you, or friends. So I hope you enjoyed the episode today. Make sure you rate and review. Make sure that you subscribe if you haven't already. Hopefully you've subscribed to the podcast already. If not, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you can be informed of all the latest episodes coming up, any special episodes coming up. So make sure you do that and invite friends. It's always good to have friends, not just when you're hiking, but it's also good to have friends when you're listening to a podcast about nature. So if you want to support the podcast, go to my Patreon page, or you can do my Ko-Fi page. The links are in the show notes. You can also support the Nature Wanderer podcast by purchasing some Nature Wanderer merch. I actually added some new things recently, so there's some new merchandise on the website. Cold weather gear like sweatshirts. So one of your layers could be an awesome Nature Wanderer sweatshirt, a hoodie. They keep you nice and warm. I know I have one and I love it. It's nice and toasty warm. And so make it one of your layers. So go to the merchandise store. The link is in the show notes. It's also on my website, naturewanderer.org. There is no "the" at the beginning. Someone took that. I'm still trying to get that, but it's naturewanderer.org. The Instagram, my Instagram is the Nature Wanderer, underscores in between each word. Facebook is the Nature Wanderer as well. So make sure you subscribe to those as well. Like me, subscribe, and above all, get out and explore nature, and of course, keep exploring the nature around you.
Hello, nature lovers. Do you love to read books like I do? I've always enjoyed reading books ever since I was a kid, especially books about nature. Unfortunately, as I get older, I find myself with less and less time to sit down with a good book. I've solved that problem with Audible. Audible allows you to listen to your favorite titles while you are driving, at the gym, taking a walk, wherever you are. With all the latest titles, you'll have quite a selection to choose from. And they have podcasts too. Start listening today with a free 30-day trial. To get your free 30-day trial, go to the show notes and click on the link. Happy listening.